Namaste, everyone. Michele Granberg here. Welcome to another episode of Positive Energy, bringing enlightening television for your evolving soul. On this show, we're doing something completely different. I'm going to be answering questions submitted by viewers. Stay tuned as Positive Energy starts right now. Okay, friends, let's get right into our questions today. The first question, and the first group of questions, is sort of along the psychology and mindset category. So the first question is, what is resilience and why is it important? All right, so there's a lot of talk about resilience lately. In fact, it's really being studied and understood to be one of the basic building blocks of thriving, especially for kids and teens. So resiliency is basically how you cope, how you bounce back, when you bounce back, and the quality of your bouncing back from an event. When something surprises you, when something stresses you, when there's a crisis. And these surprising and unexpected things happen all the time. But if we can bounce back fairly quickly and return to that pre-crisis state, back into balance, that's really what resilience is. It's having a set of coping tools that we rely on and an inner resilience and inner strength that allows us to return and not allow stress to compound and compound and compound. One of the best tips I can give you for being more resilient is to have a sense of humor. They have shown that people who have a sense of humor, in other words, not trivializing things in their life, but an ability to look at things from a lighter perspective, the lighter side of life. If you can stop during a crucial, stressful time, pull back a little bit and try to find some small thing that's funny, that's humorous, that's ironic about that situation, and bring a little humor into it, it will shift the situation. And again, it will make you more resilient because you're less sucked into that situation. So that's your tip on resilience today. The next question. So the next question is, what is just one simple way I can improve my relationships? Wow, that's a pretty big question. And if you're asking just for one way to improve your relationships, I'm going to say learn how to listen. All right? Listening is so important. Communication is so much more than just talking, right? And articulating and getting your point across. More of communication is nonverbal, it's body language, and it's listening. Now, when I say listening to your partner, to your family, to your friends, to your colleagues, I'm talking about active listening. And active listening is a little different than regular listening, and it's not just hearing what someone's saying. Active listening is engaged listening. It's being present. It's not thinking about what you're going to say while the speaker is speaking. Right? But it's being present, it's listening to their words, getting the sense of it, but also the tone, listening for the intent, watching their body language, and not judging what the other person is saying either. And it's whenever you find your mind wandering to the past or to the future, when someone's right there directly in front of you, your partner, your loved ones, bring your attention back. That's such a gift. They're going to receive it like a gift. If your mind wanders, come back to them. Your mind wanders again, come back to them. Give them time and space to speak and just listen and just hear and maybe just sort of reflect back with, I get it. I hear you. Maybe some of those little words before you jump in with your own thoughts or your own opinions. So listening is really a way of showing respect and showing love. Okay, so that's your tip on relationships today. Take that with you. So the next question in the same category is about negative thinking. You don't have any negative thinking, right? Why do I have so many negative thoughts? And what can I do about them? I agree, we have a lot of negative thoughts. Again, I think they've studied this as well, and it's in the tens of thousands every hour or so. We have thoughts that are not only are they negative, but they're also repetitive. So those negative thoughts that we have tend to be very self-reinforcing, right? So each time we have the thought and then we have it again, it spirals and it makes a wheel of thinking that the reason we have so many of these is mainly habit. I mean, there's more to it than that, of course, but you want to start to think about your thoughts, your thinking as habitualized, that you've hypnotized yourself into thinking a certain way, and then you just get caught in that train of thinking the same way over and over again. So how do we break any habit, right? How do we change our thinking? If we think of it as a habit, we want to break the habit, just like biting your nails or smoking. We break the habit by noticing, catching the habit in the moment as best we can, but we also need to replace the habit. So it's not enough just to catch your negative thinking, and you don't want to judge your negative thinking either, because that's not going to help you to beat yourself up about it, but catch and then replace. So try to replace a negative thought with a positive one, and it takes time for that to take hold. The other suggestion is during your quiet moments when you're reflecting on yourself, when you're thinking, when you have time and space to just sort of, reflect on the events of the day, go into a meditative state by just reflecting. Then it's much more likely you'll be able to change your thoughts when you're not confronted with someone, with some person, place, or thing that's stimulating you into a reaction. And use self-talk, affirmations, visualization, meditation, and other tools like that to begin to turn the wheel around of how you think. So be aware of how you think. Don't judge it. Be patient with yourself. Work on it like a goal. Okay, so next question is, what is self-esteem? And how important is it? And is self-esteem different from self-love? So self-esteem and self-love are of course, very related to one another. Self-esteem is really the cornerstone of how you feel and think about yourself, the image you have of yourself in your mind. It's self-respect and confidence are also ingredients of self-esteem, but it's also how we behave toward ourselves and treat ourselves, such that sometimes people will treat other people better than they treat themselves. So notice if that's something that you do, and begin to sort of monitor that without judgment. Self-esteem is also about thinking of yourself as an equal. Like low self-esteem would be thinking, I'm not equal, I'm less than others. High or positive self-esteem would be more knowing that you're equal. Not that you're the same as others, but your worth. Your worth is equal, that we are all equal. So notice if you think you aren't. Notice if you feel like you're broken or different or tainted in some way. That's an aspect of your self-esteem. Now self-love is the same. Treating yourself with love, loving yourself is really about getting in relationship with yourself, having an intimate, positive relationship with yourself where you get excited about yourself. You think about yourself, you think, I'm doing great. I love this, even when you make mistakes, right? So it's that felt sense of love that goes hand in hand with self-esteem and self-acceptance. So I hope that makes sense. Okay, now we're going to go a little bit into more the spiritual. We're going to go into some of the spiritual questions. So the first one is, what is the nature of the soul? So how much time do you have? This is a big question. And all I can do is offer my take, my thoughts, my experiences to that. So in general, I will say the soul is the individualized version of the universe itself, right? It's a self-contained, individualized version of all that is. Okay, from the broadest level, we are energy. Everything is energy. Everything is intelligent energy. And the soul, we could say, is having an experience of itself through a physical life experience. We are that wise, intelligent essence. And we also, when we think of soul, we know that we are immortal, more infinite than we really have ever imagined ourselves to be. Okay? So the soul, we could say, is that aspect of us that continues on and on and on, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, if you believe that, and returns over and over again, and somehow surpasses the physical body and doesn't die, and survives death in some shape or form or another. But when we think of the soul, it is everything pure that you can ever imagine. It is love, it is purity, it is expansiveness. It is that true nature of us. That's the soul. What do you think? So the next question delves a little more deeply into past lives. So if you know me, you may know that I am a certified past life regression therapist, trained with Dr. Brian Weiss back in 2003, and ever since then, full-time, I've been offering private past life regression sessions. So I've heard people remember their past lives over and over and over again. And of course, I'm a big believer. So the answer is yes. Do we all have past lives? The answer is yes. More past lives than you could ever measure. You can't really quantify it, and it's not really about how many lives that we've lived. It's really about how much we've evolved in each life, given that every single life is a renewed opportunity to grow spiritually. The next part of the question is, how can we recall our past lives? Well, yeah, through past life regression therapy is certainly one way. Another way is that often our past life memories will come up spontaneously, so you want to pay attention to those spontaneous memories that come up. But as a past life regression therapist, I help you create, carve out, set the intention, support you in time and space so that you can just simply remember those memories and we can walk and talk through those, so that you can learn from them. And the way we do that basically is we create the state. We create the state, which is really just nothing mystical really about it. You know, when you think about a memory from this life as well, you need to sort of relax in order to remember, right? You need to sort of take it down a notch and get out of your head a bit to be able to remember what you want to focus on remembering. And we do the same similar kind of thing during a past life regression session, okay? I will lead you into a light state of relaxation, which makes it much more likely and possible and probable once those walls come down that you're able to remember. I know that you're capable of remembering, but whether it'll happen then and there right at that time, most likely it will, and I'm really there to support you with that. So what are some of the benefits of past life regression therapy? That's the next question. So some of the benefits are, it's really about self-understanding. It's really about understanding ourselves on a much broader scale. We're going to understand ourselves before we were children, before we were kids, before we were born. There's so much more to us that exists prior to our present incarnation. So there's so many benefits to that because it adds more pieces to the puzzle of who you are. In addition, people start to understand why they have certain fears or phobias that they never understood before, traumas that they've had in past lives, and how those are continuing to affect you today. So you can learn, gain insight and understanding from those, and then often, sometimes, no guarantees, those fears or phobias or patterns or beliefs might subside or go away altogether. And wouldn't that really be wonderful? So the next question is, do we all have a soulmate? And what are soul contracts? Okay, great question, right? So maybe you've heard the term soulmates, maybe you've heard the term soul contracts. So I'm going to say yes and no. Don't get too locked into the idea of a soulmate being that one and only person who is your savior, who is your knight or princess that's going to come into your life, and it's going to be rocket ships and stars and hearts all over the place. But a soulmate is a soul, is a being with whom most likely you've had a pre-birth conversation with, a plan with, to meet one another again for the purpose of spiritual growth. It's usually someone who you're very in sync with them, and you feel that sync. You feel that match that you are. So that's a soulmate. But a soulmate can also be a friend, can be a family member. Okay? A little bit different from sort of a karmic relationship, which are usually relationships that are more short-lived, that are relationships that where the heat, the intensity of it is to push you to learn a particular lesson. And then usually the secondary lesson is to move on from one another. Okay? But I'm sort of generalizing here just to give you a quick answer. Okay? So yes, please know that you have many soulmates, that you have soul friends and soul allies, and they're probably already with you in this life. And the contract is this idea, it's not a written contract, but it's this idea that our souls existed in between each and every life, and that there's forethought, there's purpose, there's strategy, strategy to some degree. Prior to incarnating, we set up a sketch, an agenda, a little bit of an agenda about what we hope and will intend to accomplish as we enter that life. But just know it's all for good. It's all good news. There's no bad news about your soul, and there's no bad news about your past lives. So now we're going to move a little bit into the category of some of these questions are a little bit about well-being, healing, just being a better version of yourself. So the first question is, what does it mean to heal? Like, what does it mean to heal? We're not just talking about getting a scratch on your skin and that little scratch will heal. Of course it does, and the body heals itself. But we're talking about holistic. How do we heal from a holistic level? What does it mean where we sort of get into that space within ourselves where once again we feel whole? So that's what really healing is. It's returning to that, our nature of wholeness. As a soul, you are really whole. There's nothing really wrong with you. There's nothing really broken. There's nothing really in need of fixing on that level. We don't always relate to ourselves that way. We relate to ourselves as a whole bundle of weaknesses, a bundle of flaws. And sure, we're always a work in progress, but I want you to think of healing as not because you're broken or there's something wrong with you. Think of healing as getting closer and closer and closer to the whole version of me, to the version of me that I really was born as and born to be and can now return to, right? And so that's something that I help people to do, right? To sort of move past all the notions of how broken and wrong they are and remind them of their strengths. You're strong, you are well, you have more positive qualities and attributes than you realize. So I hope that's a good answer. Okay, the next question. I recently lost a pet. Is it normal to feel this devastated? So I am a trained pet loss bereavement specialist. So I completed a training because the loss of a pet is unique in its own way, and the grief is real. So that's the first thing that you really want to know. You're devastated because the grief is real. And for the most part, to some degree, society or the larger collective notion is that a pet loss is lesser than the loss of a human. Now, I'm not really comparing them in an exact way because it's somewhat apples to oranges, but the feelings are the same. Grief is grief because love is love. So for most of us pet parents, when we take a companion into our home and agree to love them and care for them for the duration of their life, that commitment and the fact that they're always, unlike children who grow up and leave the home, right? A pet will always be dependent on you, will always rely on you for care, cannot survive on their own. Okay? So I think there's something about that level of responsibility and the vulnerability that pets are vulnerable. And the agreement that we always want to care for them, we never want to see them suffer, and maybe we start to believe that when they die, somehow we're responsible. We take on that responsibility because we care. So we feel the pain because we love them. Yes. So of course, pets do die, and it is not our fault, and we make decisions and we make the best decisions we can. So pet loss, grief is real. Therefore, you might need someone to support you through the loss of your beloved companion. And that's something that I can do with you, or you can, if you need extra support for your grief because you're just not functioning, it's overtaking you, you can't get out of bed, if you're having any of those kinds of really significant day-to-day, your functionality is just not there. It's normal to be even crying every day, but if it's so disruptive, no matter what, it is really a good idea to get some extra support for that pet loss grief. and reach out. Not everybody will understand. Some people will minimize your grief. So those might not be the people that you will reach out to. Maybe reach out to a friend who's gone through what you are going through, or reach out to someone like me. So I hope that helps. It's very hard to lose a pet. So, last couple of questions here, a few more. Get into a little bit of another category around veganism and animal rights. So, question is, what is veganism? Good question, because there's a lot of misconceptions about what veganism is. Veganism is not a diet, although eating plant-based is part of veganism. Veganism is really a commitment. It's a lifestyle, but it's a way of being. It's a commitment and a stance that you will never, in every way that's possible and practical, do anything that brings harm to any animal of any species whatsoever. So that means either directly or indirectly, right? So through your choices or through your direct actions. So veganism really is, in some ways, an inaction. So it's an abstaining from participating in animal cruelty. So I guess you're getting at this point that it's all about the animals. Veganism is about the animals. It is about not agreeing with the normalized animal cruelty that is out there. And I'm going to go to the next question, because it's asking me, why do you fight for animals, and what exactly is meant by animal rights? We're not talking about giving animals the right to vote. That's just silly. A lot of time we get that joke, right? Yeah. So why do I fight for the animals? I don't know. The question might be, why don't you fight for animals? I fight for animals because I've seen the cruelty, I've seen the footage, I know about it, I've read about it, and I can't unsee it. So for a lot of people, that's why they make that change. A lot of people will see what is going on with animals, and it's barely the tip of the iceberg, what you could actually stumble across. There's even so much more going on behind closed doors, and it's so pervasive in so many ways that once you start to see it, you start to recognize it more and more and more. Animals are used, and I believe that all use is abuse. Animals are used for clothing, and they are used for entertainment, and they are used for lab testing, as well as being used for food. You know, and in each of those situations, and there are so many more, the animal goes through so much suffering, so much fear, so much terror, so much panic. And then, you know, at the end of the day, our gaining from the animals is it's sort of not selfish, but it's sort of about us instead of thinking about the animals. So that's sort of maybe I think I went off on some tangents there. But what I mean by animal rights is thinking of animals as equal in every way that matters, and striving to treat them the same way as you would treat any other being, any other sentient being. And so if that resonates for you, again, reach out to me. I can help you go vegan if you'd like to go vegan. If you'd like to get more involved in activism for animals, boy, would I be happy to help you do that as well. So, you know, certainly feel free to reach out to me. So the way I'm going to end this now, the show today, is I'm going to invite you to take some deep breaths. So join me in that if you would. Close your eyes for a moment. And then I want you to take in 2 deep inhalations in a row, and then 1 long exhalation with a hum. Got that, right? So a big in, followed by another in, and then a long exhale. All the way out. Let's just do that 3 more times. So deep breath twice, big in, big in. And with this final breath, place your hand on your heart and say to yourself as you're breathing, I am peaceful, I am grateful, I am well. So thank you everybody for joining me. I hope that you appreciated these answers. And there's so many more questions out there. So I look forward to more shows to come. Thank you so much. Well, we're wrapping up another enlightening show. I really appreciated everybody's questions today. I hope you'll join me next time on Positive Energy. Check out my website, michelegranberg.com. Go vegan, and look forward to seeing you again.